I suggest we get started anyway. I can make a little bit of a slow introduction. Hopefully you can see me live, but also see an image of me sitting on a chair in front of a pile of waste. I work at a Swedish company called CISAV, and we are handling waste from both municipalities, households, but also from the industry. We are in the most southern part of Sweden. I work at the headquarters here in Malmo as an environmental educator. My role is to get people on board of behaving more sustainable and understanding their part and role in what is sustainable development. How to live within the planetary boundaries, all very easy stuff I'm supposed to do. So my job is to communicate, to have seminars, conferences, take on study visits. We have like 5,000 people visiting us every year on study visits. And this image I actually took when I was supposed to talk for some British waste exporters. And I'm going to get into the fact that we actually are importing waste to Sweden today, later on. But that's me sitting in front of a pile of waste that we took in through our recycling centers in the region. I'm going to see now if I can start getting these slides moving. Yay! This is CISA was formed 1974, and when we were formed, there was set an overall goal for our existence. It was to recycle as much as possible and put as little as possible to landfill. Great goal 1974, because we put everything to landfill, more or less, back then. Today, waste comes to us, as you can see in the little wheel here, and out we deliver several different stuff. We take in garden waste that is turned into soil that we sell as a plantation soil. We refurnish. We produce a lot of biogas and biofertilizers, but mostly we produce heat for the district heating grid and electricity from combustible waste. Great goal 74. Let's see what has happened with the numbers over this year. Then, if that was the goal for our existence 1974, let's see how we've been doing. And I'm just going to see if I can get this started. So here you see the numbers of recycling versus landfill. We put less than 2% to landfill today, even though we take in also industrial waste. When it comes to household waste in Sweden, we put less than 1% to landfill. 0.4 or something like that. And the rest is getting recycled. But what is really important to understand that this almost 100% recycling includes waste to energy, or energy from waste, as you can also call it. 55% of everything we recycle as energy. And is that really recycling? Well, I get into that more later on. I would say no. I would prefer we called it recovery. But we are so energy efficient in Sweden, so we are actually allowed to call it recycling. And so we do, of course, because it looks better in numbers. We didn't get here by chance. Why we don't put so little to landfill is because we have, for instance, a landfill tax introduced 2000, but then also we have a ban against landfilling of organic and combustible waste in 2002 and 2005. So I'm just going to turn off your microphone to John for a while. So we didn't get here by chance. We are here because we actually wanted to move away from landfill, and we banned it, and that was the easiest way to do it. And you can read more about that on our webpage if you like, cisav.se, because we have it in English there as well. I'm just going to try to get it to move. So let's talk first of energy from waste, but then I'm going to address when you should use energy from waste technology and when you should not, because there are several reasons why you should not have waste to energy or energy from waste. We produce a lot of heat and electricity, and this started by chance because we had an oil crisis in the 70s. In Malmo, where I live and where I work, 90% of the people living in Malmo, more or less, have district heating as their heating source for heating up their hot water, for showers, washing up water, but also the radiators, right? Because we live in a cold country in Sweden. And 60% of the total demand comes from waste today. We have 4 boilers, and But all over Sweden, we have these district heating grids in almost all major cities. And you can see here that we are incinerating more and more. From 1985, we have gone from, these are metric tons, megawatt hours on your left-hand side. You see it's been a success story when it comes to combustion of waste. And the reason is we need the energy, because it used to be fossil fuel in feeding the district heating grids. Here at CISA, we have 4 boilers, 2 older ones that only produce district heat, but 2 modern that also produce electricity. The fuel is combustible waste from household and industries, and we combusted 564,300 metric tons of waste last year. So this is, John, your microphone is on. I'm going to try to mute you again. So this is what we do here at CISA with about 50% of the waste we treat. We produce 1.5 terawatt of heat and more or less 280 gigawatt hours of electricity. What is super important if you're going to incinerate waste is, of course, you have to clean the flue gas, because you can't handle a problem if you want to call waste a problem. I don't. I think it's not a problem. It's a symptom of a problem, but I'll get back to that later on as well. If you put in a problem into the furnaces, you can't let out an even worse problem through the stack or the chimney. You have to clean the flue gas, of course, and we do so very successfully. We are letting out less than we actually have permits to do. We are better than required because we can. We are owned by municipalities. We're not a private company. We can invest in the best technology possible to clean the flue gas, but we still add on particles to the environment by incinerating. Therefore, it's super important we just incinerate what can't be treated better in the waste hierarchy. And I'll also get into that later on. This is how it works. The waste truck comes to us here, dump it into the bunker. We pick up it with the big grab. This grab can lift up 6 metric tons in one grab, feeding the furnace. And we're feeding this furnace with about 30 tons per hour. Here you get the temperature of 1000 degrees Celsius. The smoke goes up, the flue gas goes up into the boiler. We take in water. The water converts to steam. The steam now we take it into the turbine. The steam now has a temperature of 400 degrees Celsius and a pressure of 40 bar. This steam now drives the turbine. The turbine drives the generator, and we produce the electricity that we sell on the open market. Then the steam expands from the turbine into a condenser, losing its pressure. So the steam meets now water coming from the city of Malmo that's been there heating up people's homes. And it gets reheated by the steam, and that water goes back out into Malmo, heating up people's showers, radiator water, and so on. Then the steam condenses back to water, of course, and we take that back into the boiler, steam, water in a closed loop. Now, what's all this other stuff about? Well, that's about cleaning the flue gas. You absolutely have to clean the flue gas as great as possible, because since we are incinerating waste, the flue gas is very toxic. It contains particles, NOxes, nitrogen oxides, and stuff you don't want, right? So first we have an electrostatic precipitator taking out the particles, the dust, by using electric charging of the particles. And we take out 16,000 tons of dust every year from the flue gas. Then we have a wet cleaning system in scrubbers, a condensing scrubber, an electric venturi filter, and finally catalyst, converting the nitrogen oxides into the nitrogen and air. Then we can take it out through the stack. We have economizing systems all over the world where we preheat the district heating water. This is super energy efficient. You can read about it on our website, cisa.se. In English, we have brochures there. The links are in my expo booth as well, so you're going to find it there. So this is waste to energy in the best technical way, but this is not to be used on all kinds of waste, and I'll get back into that now. So I'm just going to see if I can change my little slide here. Bob, thank you for joining, but you have your audio on. Can you see if you can? take that out, please. So let's get back to this recovery versus landfill. That was a funny thing that happened with image. As you can see here now, recycling versus landfill. Great numbers, but if I were to draw a line indicating how much we affect the climate and environment, it's actually gone up over the years. So we are the best in the world, together with a few other countries like Denmark and Holland and Austria. Sweden, we have the most sustainable waste management in the world. And yet, we are affecting the climate and the environment more today than we did when we buried everything in the ground, or even worse, when we dumped it in the oceans back in the 50s. Why is that? What is lacking from this story? Well, first of all, the amount of waste. How much waste are we actually talking about? And this is really, really key here now, because the amount of waste has increased so much. So the technical advancements we made, it's been eaten up by the amount of waste and how that affects us. So let me say something provocative here now. Recycling is bad for the environment. And it is, because recycling costs also energy, transportation, new materials, new chemicals, water, all that you have to add on to recycle. If we recycle stuff that we don't really need, and we're going to get into that more as well. So I'm just going to see if I can change the image here. We have some problem with the technology. Here you can see the actual increase of waste in total. It's the yellow one on top. So it's a great thing that we energy recycle more. We recycle more as materials, and we have more and more of biological treatment on, for instance, food waste in Sweden. We biologically treat into biogas and biofertilizers. So you can drive buses and cars on food waste, and you can get the nutrients back to farmland where new food grows. All that is great, and it's great that landfill has dropped. But the problem is there's more and more waste to handle. And that costs. That has a cost for the environment and the climate. Recycling also costs, because there's transportation required, there's new plants that has to be built. So you can't save the planet by recycling or sorting waste. And in Sweden, we have a problem here, because we spend more and more money buying more and more stuff, and we fly more and more to Thailand every year when it's not Corona season. But we behave worse and worse, but we justify it by telling ourselves, well, I sort my waste. There are several reports indicating this is how we reason. So if we're going to talk about the amount of waste, an average Swedish person generates 500 kilos of waste in his private life annually. So a family of four people, that means that you generate 2 metric tons of waste annually in your family alone. Residual waste, food waste, packaging, stuff that you don't want anymore. Is that a lot? Well, let's compare to something. If we compare to when my grandmother was born, it's a lot, because when my grandmother was born, and she's still alive, 1929, an average Swedish person generated 30 kilos of waste. 30 kilos of waste. So we've gone from 30 kilos of waste to 500 per person during her lifetime. Why is that? Well, the main reason is we're rich today. Sweden is one of the world's wealthiest countries. In the 20s, we were actually poor. We were the poor cousin in Europe. So growth in economy is a good thing. I don't have to worry about food and schools and hospitals and that. Free, more or less, in Sweden, but growth comes with a price: more waste, more pollution, more energy, more transportation, more climate change. And 500 kilos is also just the tip of the iceberg, right? Because it only measures downstream. So when my smartphone is broken, I throw it. It's part of my 500 kilos, but not the 86 kilos of waste generated in production of this smartphone. Because when you produce a smartphone, when you build a smartphone, you need mining for all 30 different kinds of metals. You need cobalt from Congo, you need copper from Chile, you need rare earth metals from China. And all this there is a lot of waste generated. And also you need oil drilling in Iraq, Iran, Venezuela for the plastics, and you need mining for limestone for the glass. So one cell phone actually generates 86 kilos of waste, but that happens in other countries where we don't have waste management like in Sweden, where it actually pollutes the groundwater, where there's big problems with cobalt mining in Congo, where you have even a war going on over these materials. So we have to remember that unfortunately, this 500 kilos is just downstream. It's what I put in the bin. It's what I take to the recycling center. It's not the waste generated in production of what I consume. So this is really important to remember. 500 kilos, it's just the tip of the iceberg, right? So now you're going to do a little, now you have to, I'm going to give you a challenge here. Let's pretend you're a Swedish normal family of 4. Normal. You can form your own family as you please. But you are 4 people and you generate 500 kilos per person, 2 metric tons per year in this home alone. Food waste, residue waste, used diapers, but also other stuff, right? What would you do if there were new legislation now that prevented you from carrying any waste outside of your home? Let's pretend there's new legislation in place. I'm the president of Sweden. I don't know how it happened, and I decided to teach you all a lesson. Youth believe you are sustainable because you sort your waste. And I'm telling you, you're buying too much stuff. You behave like there's no tomorrow. There's more and more waste put in your bin every year. Now you have to handle your own waste. It's absolutely forbidden to carry any waste outside of your home. No waste is allowed to leave the home. How would you behave? How would you behave? What would you do differently? What strategy would you implement? Write in, please, or if you want to speak, you can turn on your microphone. But if you just want to type it, give me some suggestion. What would you do differently? And don't do the mistake. Do the mistake of a politician I once met who did this with me. He said, well, I would just dig a hole in the basement. And I went like, where are you going to put the soil that you dug up from the hole? And he looked at me and said, well, I just dig a new hole. And then I suddenly understood politics and how it works with different terms, just pushing the problem in front of you. So Kate wrote, buy less, waste less, reuse, repair, compost some waste, a barter system, plan food shopping effectively, resell what I don't use. Yeah, if you sell it, it's not waste really. We have leasing, swap, share. Great, you are all on board, right? Because it's not about handling waste. Waste is not the problem. It's a symptom of problem. Why put waste into the home? And let's talk about how it works in Sweden, at least. The most of us are so wealthy that we are actually today standing in front of full closets saying we have nothing to wear. There was a new report where there was 40,000 people participating in the survey, 40,000. So 80% of Swedes often have problem finding space to put in their clothes. Our closets are full, our drawers are full. A third even have problems closing the doors or the cupboards. And yet 78% often had a feeling that said, I have nothing to wear. What kind of behavior are we talking about then? In our home today, of course, we are buying new stuff that we don't maybe really need. We are buying a new sofa, not because the old one is broken, because the neighbor bought a new sofa. We had this for 10 years. It would probably make me happier, right? What we buy today that we really need, first of all, we think, do I really need it? Will it make me happier? Or do I already have something I can maybe refurnish? I can repaint my kitchen instead of maybe changing the cupboards. Maybe I can put a new fabric on top of my sofa instead of buying a new sofa if I need change. Buy then a sofa that is of a high quality, repairable, with a design that will last through the ages. We've got food here as well as part of the problem. Yeah, buy only what you're going to eat. In Sweden, we buy more food than we're going to eat. Actually, the fifth of every grocery bag that we buy, we put in the bin without even passing by the plate. And then we throw out more that been on the plate because we cooked too much. And we can't really be bothered to take it for lunch next day because most of us are so wealthy. Today, an average Swedish person spend about 12% of their disposable income to buy food for themselves. 12%. It's never been so cheap compared to how much money we make. Sorry. When I was born, 1969, you used 25% of your income to buy food, and there was a lot less food waste. When my mother was born, 1950, yes, she was only 19 when she had me, you used 50% of your income to buy food. Way less, right? And there was no food waste. You worked to eat. And everybody took care of winter apples and so on, not only hipsters today who make marmalade. Everybody did back then, right? So, and in the 20s, when my grandmother was born, we still had problem with starvation in Sweden if it was a bad year like 2018, for instance. So it's a good thing that we don't have to worry about food, but it comes with a very costly price. We throw out food. Of these 500 kilos that we throw out per person in Sweden, 126 kilos is food waste, and out of food waste, actually 40% wasn't food waste, it was food. It wasn't the banana peel, it was the banana. And we have to remember this. So you have all really good idea. Buy less, waste less. This is, of course, very, very important to keep in mind. Sorry for this little inconvenience with me skipping through the images. But the main reason why I have this little example is because it's true. We all live in a house where you can't throw out any waste. It's round. We have one home. We are one family. There are no waste trucks coming from Jupiter or Mars picking up the waste. We have to live with the waste, right? So today, unfortunately, 8-9 million tons of plastics ends up in the oceans every year. And some researchers say that by 2050, there will be more plastic than fish in the oceans. We have one home, one family. We are all connected. And this is really something we have to use when we try to get people on board. Because the market saying that we should buy more and more to be happy is very powerful message. We have to use emotions more than we've done so far when we are communicating with people when it comes to change, how to behave differently. We have to use more of emotional strategies. We have to talk about love, caring for the next person, my neighbor. We are one home, we have one home, and we are one family. And you are important to me. What you do affects me and my children, and what I do affects you. So I'm important to you. And this is something we have to build on, to get connected more and to learn more from each other and listen up, and then also start how we complement people differently. Today, stop saying, oh, new car, great. Say, oh, you kept your old car, great, thank you for doing that for my children's sake or for this planet. Don't say, oh, you have a new shirt, yay. Say, oh, you have an old shirt, great, or a secondhand shirt, lovely, thank you for helping the planet. We have to start giving credit where credit is due. So this is, if you're not going to remember one thing of my presentation, it's this: one home, one family. But I have some more examples I want to share with you. How to communicate. Well, of course, I forgot this image, this slide. One home, one family. Still in Sweden, we behave like four. These are our ecological footprints in Sweden today, like we had 4 planets. 4 planets are needed to regenerate what we take out in forms of fish and so on, and climate emissions. We only have one. We have to find a way to get people on board, to understand what is the lifestyle of one planet. And it's not enough to sort waste. It's not enough to recycle. And energy recycling won't fix the problem. But energy recycling, that I'm going to talk more about, has a role to play in a good system. If you saw my little film in the expo booth, you saw that I was going to show you how this paper can be both a great biofuel but a terrible biofuel. How it can actually be a part of a climate problem or a climate solution. And how it can minimize waste by 50%. So we're going to talk about that now. This is, and let's get back to the house first. You said all here, reduce, shop less. Yeah, if you shop, make sure you can reuse it or redesign it. as many times as possible, or sell or give it to somebody else. Then you can recycle it. Then try to recycle it as many times as possible. Then when the quality is so low, we can maybe incinerate it to heat up home, but then we have to make sure to clean the flue gas, otherwise you're going to die. And then you can put a little bit in the basement if it's not a good material to reuse or recycle. But get back to this paper. If we start in the bottom end instead with this paper, I've done some notes here now. Let's pretend at least. And once I'm done with this little workshop, I'm going to throw it out because I don't need it anymore. So what can I do with it? Let's say I put it to landfill. Is there anything bad with landfilling paper? It comes from the forest. It's organic. It's natural. It will just become soil. Or is there anything bad with landfilling paper? Yes, there is, because when it decomposes, the methane bacteria is helpful to decompose. But the problem with methane bacteria is of course emission of methane. And methane is 24 times more aggressive as a greenhouse gas compared to CO2. CO2 is what we let out here when we energy recover the paper. So instead of putting this paper to landfill, we can take it into our plant and it's combustible, so it will burn really well, and we can heat up Malmo. And by using this, we don't need as much fossil fuel. So we are actually taking out fossil fuel from the grid, putting in biofuel that is renewable, comes from the forest, produced here in Sweden. Great, right? The problem is, once you incinerate it, it's gone. It's linear. So we can't recycle it. And if you can't recycle this paper, next time I'm going to use paper, I need to go out into the forest, heavy machinery, a lot of transportation, energy, taken to the plant with even more energy, water, chemicals, new transportations to produce new paper. It's better to recycle this into new paper. And strong white paper like this can be recycled 7 times over. Right? So let's recycle the paper instead. Or even better, now you're going to see a magic trick. You want to see 50% waste reduction? Just use the other side of the paper. So once I'm done here, next notes I'm going to take, use the back side of the paper instead of a new paper. Then we have reduced waste by stunning 50%, right? Or even better, of course, the highest step here in the hierarchy. Don't use paper. Why should I? I have my laptop on. I can just do the typing here, right? And take my notes on screen. So the most environmental friendly product is the one never produced. Always like that. The most environmentally friendly product is the one never produced. And final thing I want to address before I'm open for discussions here. Good or bad doesn't exist. Meaning that there is no such thing as good or bad when it comes to waste management, because you always have to take into account what would have happened otherwise. Let me give you an example. I don't believe in any way here think we should actually incinerate more plastics. So if I go like, shall we incinerate all plastics? It's fossil. People go like, no, why should we get fossil CO2? Well, should we incinerate plastic instead of dumping it in the ocean? Yes, probably we should. So you have to always take into account what would have happened otherwise. Waste to energy is a good thing if it helps you to move away from landfill, because landfill is terrible. You get methane, but it also takes up land, and if it's a really bad landfill, it can pollute the environment next to the landfill. So landfill is terrible. If the only option is energy from waste, then energy from waste is perfect. But also you have to remember that if we build perfect recycling systems for materials in Europe today, let's say we're going to meet the European goal set for 2030 by getting 65% of all household waste recycled as materials, just a reject from that industry of new materials, the reject alone requires more energy from waste plants than what we got today in Europe. We actually need more waste to energy plants than we got today just to handle the reject, the materials from recycling plants, because the fiber is now so short. So you can't do anything with it. The quality is now so bad, you can't produce anything new from this material. Then you need waste to energy. And Sweden is a perfect country to handle this waste. We are actually importing waste from Europe today because we have the capacity and we have the need for the energy. But we only want to import and incinerate and energy recycled materials that can't be reused or recycled as materials. So energy recovery is part of the whole system. But unfortunately today, in our boilers, in our furnaces, there is waste today that should have been reused or recycled, or even better, prevented, because we are focusing too much on technology. Absolutely, way too much on technology today. We have the best technology in the world here, but we are having too much of these plants because we should have worked with change of behaviors instead. And let me give you a final example of what I mean here. Everybody here in Malmo now today, they have got a brown paper bag in their home where they put their food waste, and they have a brown plastic holder for that. So when it's full, they go down to and put it into a bin that has a separate compartment for food waste, or even a separate bin, a brown bin. And we built trucks to be able to collect these new bins or compartment bins. And we built a pre-treatment plant that we have here at CISA that produces what we call a slurry from food waste. And then we transport that to plants where they produce biogas and biofertilizers. And by producing biogas, we need less of petrol and diesel, which is good for the climate. And this is good for the climate compared to the option of not recycling food waste into biogas and biofertilizer. But researchers say that it's 10 times more efficient for the climate, or better for the climate, that not throwing out food in the first place, not food waste. To prevent people from throwing out food that they could have not chopped or eaten instead is 10 times better than producing biogas. But yet we have invested billions and billions in technology for treating food waste, where we maybe should have invested in preventing food waste to be wasted, because that's more efficient also from a financial point of view. But there's too much technology sometimes. We should have more love and more behavioral change, more nudging when it comes to waste management. That's my opinion. So I'm going to see if I can get this slide off here. So that was it. I hope you enjoyed that presentation. Now I'm open for critique and see what you have to say. And you can come on screen or just type it if you like. I'm going to read one of the comments here. As you have said, reducing waste in the first place is key. However, Sweden now has a reliance on waste for heat and energy. It needs to import waste. Well, it's a good thing that we import, because what we import is waste that should have been, otherwise have gone to landfill. Here in Sweden, we don't have landfill anymore. So if we reduce our waste here in Sweden, we can actually import more that should otherwise have gone to landfill, which is a win-win situation. And the great thing is we are also making a lot of money by importing waste, because we don't buy the waste. We actually get paid to treat that waste. And the money we get paid, we use to build even better plants here, because we are owned by the public. We're a publicly owned company. So we don't give the profit to an owner. The money gets reinvested in even better waste management. So we are reducing climate emissions by taking out landfill waste from Europe and producing heat instead of using fossil fuel in the grid, and making money to invest in better technology. So it's not win-win, it's win-win-win situation. So we need more waste to energy, but waste to energy shouldn't be used for stuff that doesn't belong in the furnaces. So you always have to keep that in mind. Yes, we need it, but don't use it as an excuse to incinerate stuff that shouldn't be recycled, that should have been reused or recycled. How do you change behaviors to reduce waste and the need for more technology? Do you incentivize? Yes, and I work on the communications department here at our company, and behavior change for us is not so much information anymore. It's about engaging, getting people on board emotionally. So you can check out, it's in Swedish, but you can check out our Instagram account and Facebook accounts and so on. Just to talk about, we have campaigns, how to cook with leftovers. We're addressing behavioral change in a selling way. We have to sell a sustainable life as alluring as a good life. We tried to sell it by like stop jet skiing, and we told people you have to stop jet skiing because there's CO2 from the petrol and it's terrible. Stop jet skiing, and we looked upon people as a problem. You are a problem. You are breathing CO2. Maybe you should shut up. Maybe you should die. Now we're trying to sell the story of, oh, come and save the climate by kite surfing. You know, kite surfing. You don't have an engine. It's easier to sell kite surfing because people can take an Instagram shot and we can tell them, oh, helping the planet, yay. And once they start kite surfing, they don't have time to jet ski. So we get the behavioral change that we're looking for without pointing fingers, without banning, without making people feel bad. Because when we do that, people tend to go like, well, there's more jet skis in China, or you know, that's fake news or whatever, because it's really boring. When we tell people that they can sell the climate by kite surfing, they're on board. They don't have time to jet ski. Now I have a lot of questions here. Let's see. Should you in Scotland invest in this incineration? If you do, make sure you can use all energy, because if you don't have district heating grids already in place, you're probably not going to build it. Make sure you can also sell the heat to some sort of factory, industry that's looking for heat. Find the urban symbiosis. So here we have district heating grid in place, because if you only produce electricity, yes, it can be helpful, but you lose a lot of the energy because you have to cool off after the turbine. Then I think it's better to actually buy that service from a country that needs the heat. But if you build it next to a power factory or industry that needs heat. Socially, energy from waste systems. Well, this one, our plant is owned by the public. We are owned by 40 municipalities. So this is, we're not here to make a profit. We're here to make sure the environment makes a profit, so to speak. Rustan, are you suggesting that Swedish consumers are neither better or worse eco-citizens than anyone else? There is a narrative that we often hit that Sweden and other Nordic countries are role models for good environmental behaviors. Yes and no. We are aware, we are interested in the debate. We have Greta. We don't call it fake news. We believe in climate change. We believe in the Paris Protocol, but we are blind to our ecological footsteps because we have exported them. We used to have industries in Sweden. We used to have polluted airs and water. We have exported. We are now buying 90% of all products that we buy are produced outside of Sweden. So we are blind for our ecological footprints. Then on the other hand, we are really good at sorting waste. We are really good at picking up stuff from the ground and so on. And we have maybe an awareness about how the ecological system works, but we are blind to our own, my personal impact, so to speak. So, is your cultural climate essential for success in waste management and environmental change? Can we do it? Yes, of course you can. Of course you can, because this hasn't been going on for so many years here in Sweden. And I travel the world sometimes to talk about how we do it in Sweden. And sometimes I come to less developed countries and I go, oh, you're so far ahead of us. No, we're in a different place. You don't have to follow our footsteps, though. You can be smarter. You can do better than us, and please do. So we can learn from you then. You can look upon us and say, what did they do right? What did they do wrong? You can absolutely do better. I'm certain. It took too long, and we started in the wrong end of the hierarchy. We should have started with the prevention and then built the technology what couldn't be prevented. Instead, we built so good technology, we thought we don't have to prevent anymore. Okay. Any more questions? You can go on air as well if you prefer that instead of typing. No? I talked fast. I talked a lot. If you want to write to me, rustan.nilsson@ciso.se. Right. Would this work on, let's say, now I got one more chat here. Would this work on small scale on the community level? How to get people to sort so you can actually then send waste to major plants if you prefer? Yes, you could, but you couldn't probably build small scale waste to energy. No, probably not yet. I have loved this and would love to discuss ideas for taking into schools. Yeah, we have a very important school program. At our website, cisav.se, it's in Swedish, most of it, but there are parts in English. But in Swedish, you have, in one of the top menus, you have school. And because we are educating school children about this, but also teachers, all teachers, everybody's studying to become a teacher at the university here in Malmo has to meet with me or one of my colleagues. And we tell them how much we don't put on the website that they can use in schools to address these, how waste is linked to consumption and behavior and the environment and climate. This is really important to address to school children as well. But you have to remember, they are not the villains here. It's we, the adults, who are behaving unsustainable. They know pretty darn well how it works, but they are not consuming. If you want to address a particular age, I prefer the one in college, because they are now starting a lifestyle of their own. They're moving away from home. They're starting to buy stuff and cook and behave, so to speak. So address a little bit than the older children. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to go to the expo booth and continue the chat there for a while and make sure if you want to reach me there. So thank you so much for listening in, and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Nice comments. Thank you. Bye-bye.